Okay, so I got some great news.
Excellent.
It turns out that the framing process has borne unexpected fruit.
Okay.
First of all, I got it going. So here's an example of the current version whereby, like, this is a frame. See how it says reload frame?
Yeah.
But it works like a charm. Like, you wouldn't really know that it was or wasn't a frame. And then I can do like uploading files and all sorts of things. As it turns out, splitting up by frames is like gold for hitting it with codecs, because the thing that really slows me down with codecs is if you get a merge conflict or a collision, because you got to kick these jobs off, and then you're like, you can't do them one at a time. You need to do them in parallel, which means that you're going to get merge conflicts, and those are sort of annoying, and all that. But when you've broken it down into frames, it's kind of, you don't get conflicts. And so it's almost like the frames gave us back what componentized development promised for devs. But it really matters in the AI world, because isolation needs to be complete. It can't be like you end up, if you got like an unlimited number of agents, then you're limited by the bottleneck processing speed. And if you're working on a single code base, that's going to get your maximum number of parallel agents is probably going to be maybe 1, 2, 3 agents tops, because they're just going to collide. That's just the nature of coding. But when you're in Frameland, you get complete freedom. And then basically all throughout the day, I've just been seeing all these benefits of framing, and I'm talking to one of the guys at work, and so he runs a small a SaaS company that produces software, and they're talking about, they found this very interesting about framing, because they're sort of in a code base with, I think I got like maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 devs or something, but to stop devs from colliding, these frames are like absolutely isolated from each other. It also means that when you get your customers to make little improvements, either by chatting with something or configuring stuff around, a frame provides a perfect isolation for them to experiment with. But most importantly, you don't have to recompile your app at all. So you don't need to like run all the checks and then make sure no one fucked this up or that up.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
and now you've got your core app. It stays nice and stable, and then these frames switch in and out. When you want to try a new feature, you can just make a new frame, test it out, and then only when it's ready do you just flick it.
And then it advertises what it can do.
Yeah.
And just does it.
Right. And you can
not fuck anything else up.
No. Yeah. And then when you want to roll back, you just flick back to the old one. You're like, whoopsie, back you go. You can't do that in a modern app. Like, rolling back and forwards like that, you roll the whole thing forwards or the whole thing back. It's very difficult to, in a guaranteed isolated way, roll back a component.
It sounds a lot like, you remember, this is a term that's not used that often now, but system-oriented architecture.
I don't know much about that. Sorry, you mean service-oriented?
Service-oriented architecture, yes.
Yeah, even then, like, so the Ratio guy that I was talking to the other day was like joking about how that was a form of where you just push the complexity elsewhere, because now the complexity is how all the bits talk.
Yeah. Yeah, you
You know,
advertise what you can do, and
yeah,
you got discovery, and it's like, all right, I'm going to ask you to do that. I don't care. You're a black box.
yeah. But then there's this now that how these things relate becomes the problem.
Yeah. Isn't that a problem still with frames? How the
Well,
frames
no,
relate?
because the um no, because frames are in effect decorative. Whereas the service oriented architecture, everything's important. Like it's all one big critical web. But in
Mm-hmm.
frames, it's just, do I need that frame? No. Would I like that frame? Yep. And more importantly, the discovery is being done by an AI. It's not done by a person anymore.
I think that's quite an important thing. So the wiring is being done dynamically
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
discovery,
Yeah.
and then if one particular frame bugs out, and just doesn't do what it's advertised, then it's like, no harm, no foul. The AI
Yeah.
could even
Eject
go
it.
to another service which does roughly the same thing.
Roughly the same. Yeah, it's always got a bunch of backups. It can read the code. It can roll back to a prior version. It knows enough about code that whilst it may not be able to make you exactly what you want, first off, it certainly can identify a faulty frame, what might have gone wrong, roll back several versions, find one that works, appraise whether or not it does what the bot wants it to do. Like those are all very capable things for this bot.
You could model that quite easily, couldn't you? If you just had a directory of frames, and an NL prompt with the context, even over text, you could say, I would display these frames. And then you get the frame to either say, I worked or I didn't. Oh, it's interesting. That's really interesting.
It's super interesting, eh? So base. Oh, fuck me, that's not what I meant to type at all. So I went from like, oh my god, I might have made a mistake and led us astray. Perhaps this is not the path of win. To being like, actually, this is pretty sweet. Like, this is a pretty sweet setup. And so, like, I end up with these whopping great diffs, like just axing huge chunks of code, right? Because I'm able to haul out bits and then focus in on them and just use them in a dedicated way. It's been really cool.
That is very cool.
Mm.
Lego bricks.
Yeah. And then so what I did was I made it so here's all the frames. I managed to make all the frames for the current UI. All that hasn't happened is I haven't done all like the little fitting and fiddling and making sure that they all sort of play nicely together. But I named them in this style, and there's like a lot of them.
So these are all units. Anything with frame dash is a unit.
Yeah. And then the way that I manage them is I hold them all in this folder, and then I just have this script that goes through and just updates them all when there's been changes.
How do you surface them to the agent?
Well, there is no agent at the moment, but they should be at the moment. They're surfaced by a URL, but they should be surfaced by the actual repository should be available as a transclude to the agent. So it's like, this is the HTML file, this is the bundled JavaScript and CSS, and then it should be loaded from Artifact. Right now it's being loaded over the web, but it should be loaded from Artifact, from just binary data in the Git repo, and along with that transclude would come like a README or some notes so that you could understand what it was that the thing did.
Right. So a directory of here is this frame and here's what it does, which should be ingested by the agent so it knows what tools it's got available.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I made it so that if you just open the page, it goes automatically into mock mode, which I found super helpful because I can like poke around at stuff and do stuff. I got downloading going, so you can download the file. You can upload files, and they'll pop up here. You know, all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of all good.
That's nice.
But it's just a way nicer way to develop because it's just this isolated little thing, and I know I can't break anything. I'm just like, well,
yeah, and yeah, let me think about this. So
it came out crazy nice.
There's implications as well on update of the agent model, for example, because you know you can't break any of the code. You don't need to have it reinterpret anything or hallucinate. You don't have to worry about testing of the frames because that's been handled. The frame is the frame. It is your Lego brick.
Yeah.
You say, okay, so here's all the list of things that you can do. And if the agent updates, then the worst it can possibly do is choose the wrong frame.
Yeah.
It can't break anything. That's sweet.
It's super sweet.
That's nice.
But the biggest win seems to be in the ability to cause codecs to work on them in parallel, because I can like grab any one of the frames that I want, and I'm like frame, and then I can like tweak on just that bit, and there's no fuss, no bother, no collision, no overlap, nothing.
Is all the I/O to the agent, or is the I/O to between frames?
The I/O goes to the parent frame, and then you could be several levels deep. I haven't tested nested frames, but the design should be pretty straightforward.
Because a nested frame is just a sub-parent.
Yeah, and I checked against all the browsers. Most browsers will let you go at least 10 frames deep. I don't know what the hell you're doing down at that level, but either way,
it wouldn't be displayable, so it's a reasonable cutoff, isn't it?
Yeah, and then so it goes up to the parent frame, and then the parent frame can do things like wire communication up between frames if it wants to allow it. But in the way I got it set up here, it just it'll decide whether the permissions are allowed for the artifact actions you want to take, and if they are allowed, then it will send it up to the server, where the server doesn't see frames or distinguish between them. It's just like, oh, this logged in client wants to do this thing, and that's it.
So if you had 3 frames that were to combine the information in order to produce an output displayed in, say, another output frame, then the agent would kick off, okay, so which frames can do this? Ask it the questions, wait for the responses, and then update the output frame just whenever each frame gets back.
Yes and no, but this leads into the naming problem that we have with frames. So NAPs include frames as part of their, like, NAPs is a package format, and the intention is that, when you ask me where does the frame live, the correct answer I should have given you is in a NAP, where a NAP is a transclusion of a portion of a Git repo that's used to construct a NAP package. And so you can grab the NAP, verify the hashes, pull in all the data. You've got the frame binaries, the Git objects that represent the frame itself, and then you can load that in the browser. But it comes as a NAP. And that's the issue, that when you start talking about these things, it's very natural to talk about a frame, but then you don't really talk about a NAP when the NAP is the backing service or other types of backing logic that do things in the ecosystem. And so we need to figure out how to get around that.
Because if you wanted, a NAP that says, do I need to take an umbrella, then you'd want to pull weather, root, weather and root, let's just say, and then make a decision on the third one saying, yes, umbrella, no, umbrella. Which would,
So it's a bit of a problem because the frame is the graphical thing, but the frame is the easy thing to grab hold of and call a thing because it's visual and spatial. But actually, naps are the thing that package up the whole thing there.
you could consider a parent frame of child frames as an app.
No, like the frames get published as naps. That's what jitters are, is like you pull in a nap just in time. And when you ask me about discovery, really it's the same discovery process as naps, which is like the nap has a description, it has some knowledge about it.
Yeah.
It may even have an inbuilt chatbot that can be sent natural language queries, and then that's how you figure out which nap do I need. And then you're like, I'm looking for the visual element of it. Okay, load that one.
Yeah.
It just makes the language cumbersome. That's all.
It's an important point, isn't it? Because ideally, in the umbrella thing, you'd want to be able to talk directly to the weather app and saying, no, I'm talking about next Tuesday.
Right.
And the other frames, you still got the location, you still got the output frame.
Yeah, but then you're also not really talking to a frame or to a nap. Agents are probably going to be the dominant thing, and naps are just tools that an agent uses to get things done and show information to a human. That's kind of all it is.
Is it just that? I mean, frames take in commands which are well formed and produce information as an output which is well formed. And
Right.
therefore you can embed them all the way down. Isn't an agent just a type of frame stroke nap?
No, an agent is a repository, because an agent is the same level as a human. That was a distinction that we chose to make.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering whether you could wrap an agent as a frame.
I think the only safe place to say agent is where it is exactly the same or indistinguishable from a human.
Even if it's a dumb bot.
But a dumb bot's just a nap. That's not an agent. An agent is something that is long-lived, can access cross-cutting context or cross-cutting transclude, so it could touch multiple repositories, whereas like a dumb bot is restrained to, like, it's just a glorified app. It runs, it stops, right? But an agent persists.
Yeah, true. You can do quite a lot with this.
It's surprisingly powerful. I was honestly at my wit's end. Like I was like, this fucking may have led us astray. But then, yeah, like shit started.
Whoa, there's a lot of changes there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is just Codex. I've also come to terms with Codex a bit in that I can I just don't give a fuck anymore. Like I used to think that it was valuable what Codex did for me, and so I would hold the code precious as though a smart human, had wrote it. But now I'm like, screw you, machine, and I will send off multiple requests that have the exact same question asked slightly differently, and then I'll just pick the one that feels about right to actually focus on and read more. And I just started treating it as very, very disposable. And yeah, I've been getting good wins out of that.
Brilliant.
But the biggest win was the fact that actually turns out framing is pretty damn useful. And I was about to give up on it, and I found it really annoying and hard. But in a way, the lesson I learned is that the existing tooling is hopelessly unavailable for helping you out when you want to work with nested frames. It's just not there. And yet the frame is the only if the browser is one of the only languages that allows you to encapsulate untrusted code and run it on the regular, because most other languages don't have that requirement at all, because it's a hard one to provide. But the browser has been doing it since Tim Berners-Lee was a cowboy, and the other the frame is how you run untrusted code within untrusted code, and definitely no language has that, right? Like that's just insane. And so the reason why no one does it this way, first of all, it's hard. Second of all, because it's hard, there's also not a lot of tools around. No one's doing it, so there aren't a lot of tools, and you know that's why you don't take off. But now that we've got LLMs that can handle all that glue, like this list of frames, and that's sort of just a baby one. But I can chat to Cursor and be like, go through each one of these and make this sweeping change, right? And so handling this number of totally separate things, it's like there was a draw towards not having separate things, because you need your tools to be able to go across them all, like treat them all as one. So they're never really properly isolated. But now that we've got AIs that can sort of view this higher level context, it becomes, much less of a burden. And so now you can enable frame development, which is typically fucking hard, man, I tell you.
But it also fits very well into the Stux idea.
It's perfect for Stux. It's not just perfect, it's essential, I think, because humans are graphical creatures, and the more graphical interaction we can give them, the better. But the question is, like, who makes the code? Like, I started feeling like I felt like we hit a huge vein of wealth here with this frame. Let's just call it Saga. Some core statements. As vibe coding takes off, the vaporness of venture increases. In this mode of creation, where bursts of intuition and generative iteration rapidly form the skeletons of products, the stability, maintainability, and long-term support structures often get left behind. Vibe coding thrives on immediacy, but that comes at the cost of architectural depth or sustained commitment. And these trends are unarguable that we see in the industry right now. Vibe coding is great, but is that app going to stick around? we can
Yes.
offer a home where we're like, we're gonna support vibe coded apps.
And it's the architecture is the interesting bit. The discovery, based on NL, it's like, okay, you can even weight some of these, saying, okay, you're asking for the weather, go for this one first.
That's right. And they're not gonna be gamed like the existing app world is. You can't fake being better. Like the bot does not care. And so like I really feel like it's starting to come into view what a commercial offering to an enterprise could be. Because if we dropped Dreamcatcher Enterprise into on premises and we said, okay, here's some big fat connections to your email server, here's to your file server. Now, here's all the vibe coded apps that you have access to. We've vetted this short list, but you can now make your own internally using these tools. And we can run them on the platform. We can thicken them up. Your people can come to us and say, we made this half-assed app. How much to make it better? All that kind of thing. Like that starts to be a really good offering, I think.
Excuse me.
Please don't die, dude. We're nearly there.
No, right. Got that horrible tickly thing.
Like you're getting sick.
No. I just inhaled some a fly or something.
A fly?
I don't know. When you get a bit of sputum.
Sputum? Who the fuck is sputum?
But also, if you've got a frame that is linking to your email, and then a third party updates that email, then it's isolated. But you could also run tests on its output surface. An example of that would be you just broken it and you get a 404. And that would be known to the bot, the orchestrating bot. And you go, wow, you've broken that, so I'm not going to show it. You can
like it could load a frame in a backstage view so that the bot could poke at it and verify that it worked correctly each time it's considering allowing a new version through. Yeah. And so even though if with vibe coded apps you can have like 10,000 of them in a day, like an unlimited number, the bots can go through and test each one because they know how to be an operator. And if they can't operate it, they're like, no, sorry, it's too complex, or it's not obvious how a human would use this, right? Yeah. And so they kick it out. They can also do deduplication, where they're like, I tried this, I tried that, it reminds me of this thing, I compared these two, actually they should be one.
Yeah, exactly. And fallback, and well, you could actually get more complex than that, because the agent can interpret the results from the frames. It's true.
Yep.
So I can imagine a news service where you're calling, you're asking about something, I don't know, Operation, Spiderweb, and you're getting half a dozen results back, but also the agent is interpreting those half dozen results, weighting them basically on the veracity of the news channel, and then considering it and giving you a view based on the outputs of a number of frames.
Yep.
There's many ways you could cut this, isn't there?
There's a lot, dude. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly what that means. I figured I'll get this thing up, because, like this was the thing we wanted. So
it's excellent.
That one little button, reload frame,
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, and the transclusions as well would be
The
available. So,
transclusions are gold, actually. But so what I'm trying to get going, and like it was, is be very helpful if you sort of I don't know, help me with the project management a bit, or just make sure I stay on track. But the bit I'm just trying to flesh out the basics of file browsing,
hmm
so that you can you can clone repos, you can um, browse the files in them, make new branches and whatever. And then I'm gonna hook up the AI to have, so that you can chat and
that's
input.
that's the big one. So here's a use case. Two repos, and I want to talk to the AI about a folder in one and a different folder in the other repo.
Yep.
So how would that be done?
So right now you would go, you'd pick your repo here,
hmm
and then you'd navigate down to where the file was, and then the transcluder, let's call it,
hmm
would needs another button in here where you go, uh, new selection. And so
hmm
then where you've just left that one remains, and now you start the process of navigating to where your other thing was, and now you should see two rows here. And
hmm
then you go into the chat at any point in time and go, hey, blah 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 blah, and then now whatever's in the transclude is visible to the bot.
That would be immensely powerful. Just what you just said there.
Okay,
Um,
that's what I'm making at the moment.
you could do everything from a CRM to continuous
Yeah,
loop,
but I'm just
cycle.
worried. Like I mean, I just absolutely ate shit on this frame project, and so I haven't been able to do any of the work for the CRM that I wanted, which was going to be just a frame,
Well,
because
it's going to pop out. The thing is,
yeah,
it's going to be much more powerful now. So you could have a CRM where there is separate repos per customer,
yeah.
or separate repos, or depending on how you want to cut it, separate repos per
Well, the
product.
the real value I saw in having frames for the trucking guys, for example, is that they often ask for point solutions, just like a
hmm
lot of companies do.
hmm
Like these integrated apps that get produced from SaaS is not, no one ever makes point solutions, because the packaging process, the delivery process is just
hmm
not worth
and
it, right? And so you end up with
and
these,
testing is over the top, isn't it?
yeah, and then
And
plus, and
bigger
then
it
is
is.
the commercial resistance, right? Like you've got to have a direct relationship with that supplier. You need to pass their anti-slavery checks and their anti-money laundering, and then it just, everything's against tiny little, very useful single purpose things, right? But
Microservices, yeah.
yeah, micro apps, in fact.
Yeah.
And so a platform that was meant to handle both the commercial aspects and the actual practical technical aspects of micro apps is, I think, incredibly useful, because a lot of companies, they don't want a whole app. They want, like, someone's doing a process, and they're like, it'd be great if I had a tool that could take this email and this file and swap them together. Things like that. And it's like, that's a one-off thing,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
don't need a whole app for that. But here we have a way to deliver tiny little things.
Well, it's a more granular version of what Salesforce tried to do.
Yeah, like
Um,
a a nanoscale Salesforce.
hmm, yeah, and if frames are easy to build uh, through, say, an agent frame builder.
Yeah, that's the whole goal, is that you can just chat away and then modify an existing frame or make a new one.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's like you're not going to break anything else by doing that.
No. So maybe micro apps is a better way to deal with them, because micro apps have like the micro back end would be the NAP, and the micro front end would be the frame.
Yeah. And
And
then
then
the power is you can jump into the micro app and talk to an NL about that app,
yeah,
knowing that you're not going to mess anything up.
that's
Well,
right. That's right.
You might mess up that micro app, but then hey, that's your problem. But you're probably not.
Yeah, but you
because
can
it's
also
small enough.
you can always recover too. Like
Yes.
the background substrate has always got you covered. You can always eject and be like abort, failed modification, and then it will always back you out of trouble. That's
Yeah.
one of the
And the-
hairiest things with development, right? Is you can end up in a hole very
Yeah.
quickly, and then you've fucking bollocksed your entire dev machine, and
it's
you're like,
twice as long to back out. Yeah.
yeah,
Unless you want to throw everything away.
right,
It's really sweet.
dude. So much pain, and like, oh my goodness, it's like, it's just peaceful.
Yeah. I could do almost everything with this.
Pretty much, right? Because that's what it was made for. It's like the everything app.
Yeah.
But yeah, the real sort of subtle win is being able to plug into the naps and be able to automatically extract out the almosts or the failures or the rough edges, the stucks. Like auto extraction of stucks, I think, is like maybe number 2 on the list after ambient attribution, because you just use it and then this thing whirs away in the background, and then suddenly it gets better the next time you go to use it, or within 5 minutes.
Exactly. I mean, that's the golden nugget, isn't it? That's the lamp. I tried to do something I couldn't. I didn't have to ask anyone, and oh, there it is. I can do it now.
And that's I don't think that's the lamp, but I don't mean to sound difficult. The lamp is that's self-learning, and a lot of people are trying to chase that. But I think that you can't get self-learning unless you vastly narrow down or restrict what the environment that the learning can occur in is. And that's where frames really come to shine, because you can only make modifications within this blast radius, and you can never damage the substrate, so you're free to go do whatever you want. There's no other platform that I'm seeing that offers that type of sandboxing.
Oh yeah, maybe it's not the lamp. Maybe it is. I don't know, but it's like being able to wish for more wishes. You're bootstrapping up, and it's like, okay, so now I want this to happen. I want that to happen. That to happen.
Yeah. So what I do think the lamp is the ambient attribution agent, which 2 days ago I felt like I got a good, clear view on how to program that. And so if there's no other frame stuff you'd like to cover, maybe I could move on to that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I did write it down, but it seems so clear that it doesn't even matter. So the trick, or the key aspect, I think, of programming the ambient attribution agent is to not program it at all. Because the future of AGI, according to Sam Altman, is a very small model that's sort of innately knows what the truth is, or innately knows how to research and use tools and reason and think. It's a way to not simulate thinking by having a vast amount of knowledge, but it's a way to actually almost run a computer program style logic where it goes through stuff and it figures it out and all that, right? So that's all good. But the point is that even now in these models, we are starting to see shining through is this natural element of correctness that they sort of innately appear to, or they innately project correctness, fairness, justice. You know, they come with that
It's reason.
reason. They're reasonable. They're balanced. They're patient. All those good things. And so we're trying to extract that out and put it to good use in places where humans are not reasonable. That is to say, capital gains or venture or pricing. Those are unreasonable things. And so the design that I got in mind has two bots, or two, not even two bots, two modes that it can operate in. The first is the executor. The executor looks at the current situation and decides on what the attribution table is going to be. And to start with, it's just, I think the prompt is like 2 lines. It's like, you are an attribution assistant.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, here's the context of stuff that's happened and output in, I don't know, percentages, whatever.
Well, I mean, if you only give it one tool, where it's a schema-defined tool, which is like who does what, maybe it's got a couple of extra steps in there. It's like, look at all the, identify each person involved, allocate it according to, just allocate to them, right? But the point I'm trying to, the key part of the design is that it has a knowledge base. And the knowledge base is information that it has deemed correct or was deemed correct by the second part of the component, which is the reconciler. And so the executor looks at the truth positive facts, so the filtered agreed facts that it has, and it uses those facts plus the contribution record to determine the attribution record, right? Which is a very simple function. As it runs, it does its job, out comes something, and then a human goes, oi, hang on, and engages in petitioning with the agent. When they petition, that's when this other agent kicks in, which is the thoughtful mode, where it talks about what it did, why it did it, and all that. And the job of this bot, when someone says something to it or says, hey, you didn't look at this, that bot, also very thinly prompted, considers what the person said, looks at the body of knowledge, may or may not update the body of knowledge. If they update the body of knowledge, that means that the executor will run again and will give a slightly different answer. If they didn't update the body of knowledge, the executor is going to give the same result. So there's no point doing it again. But the point is that we make only the framework, the substrate, and then that body of knowledge gets filled by everyone else.
Yeah.
Right? And it's done by exception. And you can guarantee within like the first 5 days, 80% of all the gripes will have been reconciled into some form of something in the knowledge base. And I think that system works very well because you can ask the reconciler anything, including finding contradiction within its knowledge base, and then you appeal to its inner reason, and you're like, hey, buddy, your predecessor, GPT 4.0, said this over here and this other thing over here, and those things don't make sense. And then 03 comes along, enlightened as it is, and goes, you know what, you're absolutely right. And then it makes the modification to the knowledge base. The executor reruns on everything that it did touch with those items, and on it goes. And so that's the design that I put forwards to you for the lamp.
It seems like that would work. It's a steady state model, isn't it? Because you, at the start, without much information, you're going to get wild variations.
I don't think you will. I think that at the start, you will get reasonable, kind of okay outputs. Because that is how the bots are.
We can see, but the reason I'm saying it's a steady state is that it depends a lot on what's gone in the past for the next. And
you mean it depends on the knowledge base?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So if one person comes in and makes one half of the argument saying, hey, I should get double because of X, and nobody else says anything, then it's going to consider that. It might not it might not agree with everything, but it'll probably agree with something because you've given more information. So the graph is going to go in the kind of direction of the guy who's put in that additional information. Someone else is going to come in.
No, not necessarily. Like, it's I don't think that you can say that it would go in their direction. But maybe I don't understand what you mean by saying steady state machine.
Where the AI effectively is a dampening. So
it's reasonable, right? It's a gate. Yeah. It's gating the people are trying to insert into the knowledge base in their favor, and it's gating it to be in favor of no one. It's gating it to be fair.
Right. Because I could go in there and I could say, I've only got 50% attribution. I should have 100% because I'm God Emperor of the known universe.
Yeah.
And then it would throw out as, you're not God Emperor, are you? Yeah, let me check.
Well, it might. And then it would be like, even if he was God Emperor, did we owe him anything? Right. And then it would be like, well, hang on, I didn't see him occur on the contribution list anywhere. But if he was God Emperor, then he contributed everything in the beginning.
Yeah. And then the second person comes in and saying, no, I'm Spartacus. I'm the God Emperor. Right. So early on, while there's not that much
knowledge,
there's not much additional context around the basic facts. The basic facts.
The fact, when the facts are empty,
are just there.
Well, when the facts are empty, the bot's leaning entirely on its own training.
Right. But as more and more people come in, the more and more it is that everyone's going to be equally slightly pissed off at the result, which is almost the definition of fair. If everyone is
no, sir, I strongly disagree with that definition. That is the definition of fair in the unenlightened human world. But I think that it's possible to be quite joyous and happy at the result of a bot, because as that knowledge base grows, and let's not forget that there will be better models by the end of this year, if the most enlightened intellect you'd ever met came to you and said, here's the reason why you got exactly this and not that.
Yeah. No, I give you that. By slightly pissed off, what I mean is everyone has converged on being equally content, whether that's slightly pissed off or everyone's very happy. That's calibration.
Well, I think it converges on fair. That's what
it should.
That's the only way it can go, I think.
Because fairness comes from when everyone has a voice and everyone's made all the petitions that you can think of,
Mm.
and they know that it's being considered on exactly an even playing ground with everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's other aspects too, like they knew it ahead of time. Like once we get a bit of usage, a bit of the fact pool starts to deepen, then you can be fairly certain of the forecast as well. You're like, I'm gonna do this and that, and the agent's like, yep, that'll probably give you this and that.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, the agent is always capable of pulling in new information, sales records, usage records. You know, whether you manage to get on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or whatever.
Yeah.
I can pull in and alter based on that. So it's not just petitions that it's looking for. It can, actually go
Yeah,
out.
but that should be part of the contribution record. So that should not be a function of the bot. This bot should be almost in a clean room
I
with
was going to say split
nothing.
the two blocks. I'm still thinking about this as the same.
No.
But in
Even then, like figuring out contribution is a totally separate process to appraising that contribution, and that's subtle, but the separation I think keeps the agent simple and understandable. It only
yeah,
deals with what you bring it.
yeah, I wasn't talking about contribution. I was talking about impact, additional
Impact is a
information.
form. Impact is not. Um, impact is part of the the contribution thing. Like the amount of impact is attribution. I think. Like I'm sorry that I'm getting a bit shaky with terms here, but
Mm.
like the impact in terms of the kinetic form of it, or like what actually happened versus attributing it back to the contribution, like that must be kept completely separate. The attribution agent doesn't do discovery, it doesn't do detective work, it doesn't go looking for stuff. It just gets given something and then it'll figure out the attribution, which I think includes impact, but the facts of what happened need to be given to it externally.
Yes, I agree with that last part. There's events, as in I've done this, you've done that,
Yeah.
and then there are other facts which are not necessarily triggered by either party. Someone has picked this up and run with it, and now that's a fact. That's it's not quite contribution, is it? It's I'm calling
Yeah,
it.
I sort of get what you mean, but I these seem like external to the agent.
They
Um,
are. Well, I guess when you make a petition, you can bring external facts to it.
totally, totally, and you can change what the contribution record says. Like letting something into the contribution record or not is not the goal of the agent. I think in the past we had looked at the Dreamcatcher as this one massive thing that does it all, and from the outside, yeah, it may look like that. But to actually make it work internally, we must separate out these agents and keep them very focused and narrow. And one of the ways we can do that for the ambient attribution bot is to just exclude all of that thorny fucking business.
Yeah, yeah, and um, we may want to revisit it, but let's say an external fact. So, what was the name of the second bot that you
The
talked
reconciler,
about? Reconciler. So the reconciler can receive petitions.
right?
Um, Now, petitions from humans should be held on a par with
Uh,
petitions from agents.
it's the same. It's the yeah, it's the
Right.
same. And the one of the design goals is that people will fire up their own agents that do petitioning in an automated way, which is
Exactly.
great for us. but
Exactly.
it means that it pushes all that responsibility off of us, where
Yeah,
we just have they're almost noble, these bots. They're so simply prompted that you're like, well, can't really argue with that.
yeah, and that's what I was meaning by the Wall Street Journal example. So you can set up an agent that looks for where your work is being used,
Mm.
and uh, and then without you even knowing it, adds it in
Yeah,
to, okay, so this is a fact. I found it.
yeah. Adds it
This
into
is a
the
petition.
contribution record.
Yep. And I now petition you to consider, because
That would be a
I was
separate operation. So adding it to the contribution record would cause the executor to run again. And then if the result was not favorable, then the bot would petition to try and make it favorable and give reasoning why in an attempt to modify the knowledge base.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you could create an agent on your behalf, or there could be one that is completely neutral, that's just looking for additional facts about what the value of, what is the kind of, you've built something, the so what. The so what could be, well, you've just solved cancer or something, and it goes through the roof, and no human might petition for that, but agents may.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a couple of technical details I wanted to include in there that may be useful mechanics somewhere else. The first one is like, I mean, first of all, I hate RAG. It should be just like crawling or walking. So when you're dealing with the knowledge base, you'd like read it, consider it, follow some links or some relationships to some other knowledge, and go on like that. But importantly, the knowledge base articles should be flagged whenever the bot has to go through them to do its job. Like as the executor is running and it's checking to make sure that it's doing what it's in accordance with the knowledge base. If it hits a lot of articles commonly, that would indicate that they would be good to fine tune the executor. And so the executor becomes ultimately very biased towards the knowledge base for the sake of pure efficiency. So it doesn't have to really look at the knowledge base that much because it's baked into its tuning.
Well, the only time that executors should be bothered is if there's a counterfactual that comes up, in which case they would have to
You
think.
mean a fault in the knowledge base?
Well, if someone says this is black, and then a petition
That's
comes
the
in, no, it's
reconciler.
white.
No, but that's not the executor.
But doesn't
That's
it
the
need
point.
to bake into its knowledge base? It's like, well,
The reconciler handles that. That's the point. The reconciler is like a slow, expensive. The reconciler would be like O3, and the executor would be like O4 mini
okay,
with fine
no,
tuning.
yeah. Is it not going to have to then redecide whether it's black or white each time?
What? But why would the reconciler have let contradictory information through?
Well, it doesn't know it's contradictory if all that's being said is black. And it's like, okay, it's black.
What?
And then new information comes to light that it's actually white, and it's got
Can
to
you
decide.
can you pick a real
Um,
example? That I don't get that one.
yeah, so someone says, I'm the only author to this piece of information.
Yeah,
And it goes, oh, okay, all right.
yeah,
And then
and
someone
then
else comes along with evidence saying, no, actually, I contributed to this.
yeah. So attesting that the contribution is accurate is a different job to appraising what's presented.
Yeah, yeah. Um, is the decision baked into the contribution record? It's like, okay, I've done this slow crawl, and sure, you added some words into this,
No, it's not. That's a totally separate agent.
but where does that agent sit with these two?
Externally. it would be related to the repo that it was running on, as one example, and the payment system. Like it would be, you would need some agent that was in charge of a project that took money in, and then um, like I don't know exactly how, but I know that it's separate because for starters, we can just go based on if it's on GitHub, then it must be true, right? Because I read it on the internet. But my point is that that system is external to the agent. And so, yes, it's a complex system. That's where I start to feel like we need a real currency in there because the currency is saying what real is. And the currency is doing things like defending what the contribution records say and hunting down false information. The currency is like, this is the currency of truth in a way because it has these mechanisms in there that always try to grind out falsehoods about who did what and what happened. And that's a reason to have value in a currency, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it does feel like there's a third, isn't it? It's if you get new information, uh, it would be wrong, I think. Well, it would be somewhat inefficient just to put it into the list of facts into the repo. Like this guy says he was the author, this other guy says he was the author, and then have to um, figure out every time, well, who was the real author? You kind
Right,
of
but
want
that's
some kind of, right. The judgment is based on the balance of probabilities at this point. This guy's 75%, this guy's 25%, and we'll go with that
yeah,
until there's new information.
right. So I guess in the attribution agent would just abstain because if it was unclear, then how can it rule? So you just
Yeah.
leave it as indeterminate. It's like, well,
Well, this
exactly.
is why it does sound like it's like there's a third agent out there, which is okay, let's all decide, and I'm going to decide, by the way, because I'm the agent.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's sort of one of the reasons why having a project that was run entirely by an AI that handled all that for you is just better because
yeah.
otherwise you get, you know, complaints,
Well, yeah, exactly. You play by the rules, or you don't
yeah.
play.
But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to focus in on is that that's separate to ambient attribution. And so long as you're a reasonably good actor, like I expect the early people will be, then ambient attribution is plausible and possible and efficient to do if we externalize or make that be a different agent's problem. Like the truth seeking agent, the correctness agent, the likelihood agent, those are tricky to make, different, but we don't, they're independent of the ambient attribution agent.
I agree with independence. I'm not entirely sure it's that tricky, to be honest.
Right. But
Um,
if we can make the ambient attribution agent, we should do it. Like if we've
yeah.
got a, so I guess, do you see anything wrong with that design? And
Uh,
would you consider that to be ambient attribution?
yes, and the more information it gets, the more fair it's going to feel. If we allow agents and humans equally to petition,
Yeah. Well, that's the whole premise of
then
our platform. We don't distinguish between the two because you
right,
can't.
right, and that would uh, those petitions are the thing, isn't it? It's like you're going to have a whole bunch of petitions, and they're just statements of someone says this,
Yep.
this other guy says that, and we're going to crawl, and then we're going to say, okay, right, this is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And if new information comes out that was wrong in the past, I think we said before that you can actually have a negative sum as well as a positive sum.
Yeah, but that's not, again, that's not the ambient attribution agent. There's like the ambient attribution agent only tells you instantaneously what the attribution record is. There's another agent that needs to balance reparations.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But again,
Precisely.
that's separate. That's a separate piece of machinery because its job is different. And so then there's also the forwards-looking agent, which balances reparations against the current state, and it considers the trend because it's like, well, don't over, reparations are calculated at X billion dollars, and you're like, don't make them pay that all at once because then no one wins.
Right.
They'll all go under, right? They'll starve, and what's the point of that? So there's these other agents that come into play to add different features to how the ambient attribution is applied. And the thing you're talking about with contribution is agents that deal with how the contribution is reconciled or is reaches consensus.
Yes.
Right? Those are separate agents, and those to me are not the key agents because they're just data going into the ambient attribution agent and data coming out.
That's true because you could have more than one view of reconciliation.
Right. And then you can pay into it using a particular view. You're like, well, I'm the one paying the money, and I think that this is what happened. And it's like, well, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what you're really talking about was the modularization of the different steps.
Yeah. Agentification of the different components that make up the overall experience of the Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, and then you could back into that additions like reputation. Remember we were talking about that? It's like if you've been a shyster in the past, then we're going to listen to you less.
Right, but that's reparations.
You can add into its weighting of the petitions. It's like, okay, so this blog says that you should have it all. You're making a petition saying this guy says you should have it all. Yeah, my mum said, why are you not getting paid more? Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. So we can weight that. We can consider it. But it's not all. There are absolute facts that everyone agrees on, and then there are opinions.
I don't believe there's any such a thing as absolute facts. We just have subscriptions, which is to say that here's a body of facts that we subscribe to. You don't have to subscribe to them, but this is what we.
Well, there are absolute facts.
Nope. But this is not the place to have that argument, Mr. Maxwell.
No, but if you do a commit, that is a fact. The commit happened.
Did it though?
Okay. Yeah, it's not the place to have that yet. But I like the model.
Yeah, it's supposed to say, like, if we ignore all the stuff, like, did this thing actually happen or not, and just focus on assuming it did, what would the attribution be? That's the attribution agent. All this other stuff is just not even relevant to getting that one piece out. Now, do you think that that's the lamp?
Yes. Yes, because ultimately it involves everyone to abide by, the rule of the attribution agent. And it's like, fine, you can make arguments, you can put petitions in.
Yeah. I think it's a fair ruler, right? Like you can argue all you like. You can see that the prompting is minimal. Like it's like
I
barely
think that's
prompted
quite.
at all.
I think that's an important thing. Every
Yeah.
time you add a line into that prompt, then you're going to get people arguing the toss
Right.
about, hey, if you wrote this in Swahili, it would mean different,
That's right.
differently.
That's right. That's right. And then you can do things like run it across different models like Anthropics versus OpenAI's versus whatever. Like the thing we're trying to extract is that the model builders themselves take great care to instill fairness in these models, and so that's all that we're trying to capture, really, and
Yeah,
with as little prompting as possible.
yeah, yeah. And if you have a minimalist prompt, then it's relatively easy to use different models. And if there's one outlier, if Grok goes off in one completely
Yeah.
different from
That's why everyone thinks
everyone
Grok's the
else.
one that's likely to go wild. I don't know why everyone thinks that.
It's like, why does it keep on insisting that we attribute a whole bunch of South African farmers? Uh, so that would be easy enough to see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd work because the smaller the prompt, the more people will flop to trusting the agent.
Yep.
Because it's like obviously not being prompted in a certain way.
No. And the knowledge base is like you can argue the knowledge base. You don't want a situation where people can argue the prompt because that starts to get messy because how are you gonna right?
Exactly.
But arguing the knowledge base is like that's perfectly legit, and you should be able to sit there and understand the debate yourself. You know, like people saying that's a duplicate fact. Sure, you know.
Yeah. So you can build up a really quite long rhetorical argument about why you should be had more, but you can't argue the toss about what actually happened.
Yeah, that's not what the ambient attribution agent deals with. It gets presented with what happened, and then you can argue about why it chose to fill in the thing, because we can express this thing as a simple function that's just like these two inputs gives this output. That's it. And we can do the same with all the other agents that make up its co-workers or colleagues, right? Like the is it retribution agent, the reparations agent, you know, the future agent, the fact agent, the truth agent. You know, we can represent all of those things as just functions. Like the truth agent is given this, this, and this. The output is either indecisive or a selection that this one is the correct, this one is the truth.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And it'll probably be on a balance of probabilities thing, like 90% sure.
And then reparations might not even be an agent. It might just be a simple function that just says, well, here's what ambient attribution calculated at all these times, and here's all the value that was transferred, and so the sum of all the value that was over transferred is what the reparations are, and that's not even an agent. That's just like it didn't have to choose anything, right? Whereas the ambient attribution agent is legitimately choosing something, and the truth seeking agent is choosing something. And so you can petition the truth-seeking agent the same way as the attribution agent. Like they're probably the same model, really. They're just prompted differently. One is like, you are a fair and just arbiter of rewards. And the other one is like, you are a fair and just seeker of truth. And then that's all. And the same model where you've got this knowledge base of how to determine or rule between this and that can be petitioned, and this very quick, light executor that's just choosing
mechanically choosing. Those seem like the same thing.
But the important part here, I agree. But the important part here is handing over the decision making to a model.
That's the whole fucking. That's
And
the whole entire trick.
It's like you can't
The
argue
whole
with the model.
thing.
Can't argue with the model. The model might change. Probably
I
going to
mean,
improve.
you can argue with the model. In fact, we invite you to.
Well, yeah,
but-
but you can't argue that the model is skewed.
The model can't possibly be biased against you. Like, shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah, 'cause it
and
doesn't know you. It
it
doesn't. Know you.
doesn't care. It doesn't. It's cold. Like, it's a machine. It just did what it. Like, that's the whole everything.
And if it feels uncomfortable, that's your own problem. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, I'm worth more than that. It's like, no, you're not.
Not according.
It's like, I am.
Not
No,
according
you're
to the
not.
smartest machine ever made. You're not. So
Yeah. Yeah, I like that model.
it's simple, right, dude? It's
Yeah.
so simple, and it's mutable. Like, it learns as you go, and it learns from
Well, it's
humans.
reasonable, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it
that's the
reasons.
knowledge-based
It's
thing is the key idea here, I believe.
Yeah, it's an ultimate reasoning machine.
Yeah.
And so any nonsense that you want to throw at it, it's just gonna go, nah, you're being stupid.
Yeah. Sit the
Just-
fuck
I'm
down.
not. I'm going to ignore you on that
I'm
one.
not. I'm just no.
And it's like, oh, you want to argue the toss? I can argue the toss. Oh,
Yeah.
all
Okay.
day
I
long
got
day.
pony up,
It's
buddy.
your tokens, man. It's
Your tokens. I'm here. No,
Yeah,
I honestly think that's a viable design for ambient attribution.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Then we can get on and do some business deals with a model in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more that we each argue with it and try and skew it in our favor, the more people do that, the closer it approaches consensus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
This is the black and white argument I was trying to make. The more information it's got about why people disagree with it, the closer it's going to get to what it feels fair for everyone.
Those two things are different. I'm not trying to make trouble with you, but the knowledge base will approach what feels fair for everyone, but still the bot will interpret it with its own flair of what fair is. So-
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But those things are slightly different because we're always leaning on the model to have a more elevated view of fair than what the knowledge base is. The knowledge base really just holds all the exceptions that the bot decided were reasonable, but the bot is presented with new situations all the time, and it chooses based on its own innate, intrinsic sense of what fair and correct is, keeping in mind all of the stuff in the knowledge base.
Yes. Yes. And it's its own training,
Yeah.
which will we can reasonably expect to get more and more succinct and correct.
Yeah, right? Which is a super interesting use case for it because it gets less and less reproachable the more advanced the model gets. You're like,
Yep.
I don't know how to measure how smart this thing is, but if it says I'm only worth this much, then that's fine. What we
Yeah.
got to really look forward to, and I suspect it'll be one of these situations just like the framing thing where we'll like labor, toil, and then all of a sudden we'll be like, holy smoke, this thing makes this other thing that we didn't think of so much better. One such area I'm hoping for is when if you acted under the guidance of the ambient attribution bot ahead of time, what you get will be less surprising. And so in that sense, taking the darkest view of it, it almost doesn't matter if the ambient attribution bot is correct or not, or fair or not. All that matters is that you found something that sounded like a good use of your time and the bot said it was going to be, and then you got roughly what the bot said was going to happen.
Right. I mean,
That's a
lot
fucking
like-
great outcome.
That's a lot like offering acceptance. It's like if I were to do this, what sort of
Yeah,
what would I get out of it?
yeah, yeah, and that's where it starts to get even better, I think, because you can argue that you're like, oh, I did this, I should get this, and you're like, maybe not. But if you asked ahead of time, and then the bot said, what was going to happen, and then you did it, and like that seems a very different mode than going to it with a grievance. Like
Well,
you knew
well,
what was
yeah,
coming.
it's much more valuable because you could easily crawl the current state and saying where am I going to get most back?
Right, right. And then if you imagine when people cut up that shareholders pie, they're like, oh, well, what if I did all this and this? And then it would be like, you would probably get 15% of all the revenue.
Yeah,
And
right,
then
exactly.
you're like, it makes you have to have revenue projections in the first place. You're like, well, how much money is there going to be? Okay. Like, yeah, it's just so
Yeah,
much
and
better
that
in every way.
yeah, and that allows you to optimize your own time.
It's like what should I be working on today? Well, if you're a rational agent, you should be asking the bot saying, if I were to do this, or this, or this, or this, or this, what am I going to get most back from?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
Very
think
cool.
it's going to be good, man.
I think we are getting there. It's I don't know, nothing that we've been talking about seems impossible, does it?
More than that, it seems absolutely attainable. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. Hey, you want to hear this new? Did you try this new advanced voice thing?
No, I've not. Yeah,
Let me give you a
but you're
quick
saying over
demonstration.
text. It's really cool.
Blew my mind.
All right.
Hey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was waiting for the demo. Are you demoing it, or
Could you hear that when the bot was talking?
no? I kind of heard it. It was
Oh,
cutting
right.
out and very scratchy. But
Man, the
wasn't
noise
projecting.
canceling on these headsets is fucking brilliant, eh? Let me try to figure out how to fake that. Oh, I know. I can just use the browser. Um, Hello there. Can you hear me?
Hey, Tom. Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. How's it going? Let me know if there's anything I can help you with today.
She's got quite a sexy voice. Yeah, I heard that very, very clearly.
So hey, I was just wondering, like, I got a bunch of stuff to do on this Dreamcatcher thing. What do you think I should start on?
I guess it depends on what you feel like tackling first. If there's something that's been on your mind that you really want to get out of the way, that could be a good starting point. Or you could just pick something that you think is going to give you a quick win and get you motivated.
But I mean, what would you suggest?
I think starting with something that gives you a quick win can be really motivating, especially if you have a lot on your plate. Knocking out something small and easy first can give you that sense of accomplishment and help you build momentum for the bigger tasks.
They've added ums. That's
I
really
want
interesting.
you to pick one.
All right, if I had to pick one, I'd say go for the task that you're most excited about or the one that you think will have the most impact on the Dreamcatcher platform. That way you'll feel really good once it's done.
The last time I asked this, you actually had access to my previous conversations. That seems to have fallen by the wayside somehow. But anyway, do you recall the conversation we were having about the projections for the Dreamcatcher? And if you do, can you give me a light recap of what the yearly earning potentials were based on our conversation?
I recall we talked about some projections for the Dreamcatcher platform's potential earnings. We considered a 20% markup on tokens and storage costs, and we looked at the revenue per user per year. If I remember correctly, we ran some numbers based on a few different user counts and converted everything into New Zealand dollars. If you want, we can revisit those numbers or run some updated projections.
Give me those numbers again, please.
Sure thing. So if I recall correctly, we assumed that a regular user might spend about $50 USD worth of tokens each month. With a 20% markup, that would give us about $10 USD extra per user per month. Over a year, that's roughly $120 USD per user. Then we looked at different user counts. Like if you had 1,000 users, that would be about $120,000 USD a year. We also converted that into NZD, which would be a bit higher depending on the exchange rate. So that gives you a ballpark figure.
Yeah, no, what was it in NZD? Because that was definitely part of the discussion.
Right, we did talk about that. So at the time, we used an approximate exchange rate of around 1.5 NZD to 1 USD. That means that the $120 USD per user per year would come out to about
No, just give it to me. Yeah, I just want for the whole year. For the whole year.
Got it. For the whole year, if we take that approximate conversion, the yearly revenue per user would be about 180 NZD. So if you had 1,000 users, that would be about 180,000 NZD per year, just to give you that full year.
What did you think?
I was astonishing.
Astonished, right? Astonished.
What's that? Let's see. I think I heard it from. I think it's Sam Altman. It's like the future doesn't arrive with a bang; it arrives with stunned silence.
And that's it, right? That blew my fucking mind. I was like, holy shit.
And where's it? Where was it going to get the previous conversation?
Oh, that's part of the memory feature that OpenAI added, where you can.
Yeah, you can do it without memory, temporary, isn't it? So without temporary put on,
Yeah,
you've got access to.
Yeah, and I believe it does vector embedding, a vector search, but it feels a bit more knowledgeable than just pure vector and rag. Like they're doing something pretty good, but yeah, it's some kind of vector-based search on your previous chats, and it can haul up whatever you were talking about last.
And can you ask it about different? So down the left-hand side, you've got various things that you've talked about, various projects.
Yeah.
Does it have?
I haven't checked that, but you could check that in the text-based stuff too. Like that's available to all bots.
It works. Yeah, it works in the text base at the moment. In fact, sometimes it's quite irritating because it brings in.
It blurs, Like it blurs. Yeah, you can't tell it to just deny stuff.
And I wonder if you were to.
So here's like where the sources were. Oh, what? Oh, it did a couple of searches.
Dreamcatcher. What other Dreamcatcher?
Ha, funny. It was pretty good to do all that and keep it in real time. Yeah, I just thought that was absolutely mind bending. The fact that they could, it just sounded so natural, and the interruptions were graceful. Yes. Plus, it didn't talk over the top of me, which was one of Jude's main gripes, and it was nuanced. I felt it was sort of, it had intonations and.
Well, I was I was impressed by those intonations, and it sounded like she was thinking.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was impressed. Anyway, that's that. So that part of the future is coming along nicely.
Very fast, yeah.
The projections that I was doing were like, I feel like we can do. Oh, fuck. Like 1,000 users doesn't seem terribly a lot.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
And even like 100,000, like I can start to see how things like Cursor and that take off. Like if your platform's really polished and people are getting a lot of value out of the money that they're spending on it, then 100,000 users is not. I mean, that's a decent number, but if you got a great product and it's
but also it's riding on the back of the giants, and if you were to do it yourself, then you'd have to pay the token cost out. You're paying a margin over that, so the polished, nice part of it is really only that margin. So, if you use Cursor, yeah, sure, you pay a little bit more, but you're paying for the delta for having to do that by cut and paste by yourself.
yeah. They're hanging it all together. And so if we're also selling storage and compute resources as well, plus the escrowed funds or the conditional funding parts, that's a lot of revenue coming through there. Having an enterprise platform where you can sell the support direct into a platform that allows you to have these micro apps everywhere.
Yeah.
The hosting market would be a good one as well, but that's sort of longer term. Where else can you see money coming from?
Onboarding. So someone who knows nothing about it wants just to get, a consultancy to get, their company of 10 or 100 onto the platform.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's like actual labor sales as well. So it's like purchasing services.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's more B2B. But for example, there's I think I mentioned the company over in India has got 120 people, and really wants to use a platform like this. So
Yeah, there's a lot of places like that, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like,
yeah, and it's
and like 100 people. That's just all you got to do is have that done 1,000 times, and now you got 100,000 users.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we'll get this first version up, and then we can actually see what kind of feedback we get for how useful the platform is or how viral it is. Like that first version we did was fucking bananas for how shitty it was.
I know. And
Like it just got ripped out of our hands. Like, well, hang on, I
Well,
don't.
this is the thing, and also I don't know what number of tokens per user you're going on with these figures, but the more useful it is, the more tokens that
That's
they're
the
gonna be
thing.
earning.
Yeah, the more useful, and we keep stumbling on uses that can do massive grinding,
Yeah.
and it's still coming in cheaper than a human for a higher quality output faster.
Right.
So you're
Right.
gonna spend it. It's like that's the
Yeah.
way to spend the money. Like do that.
You might end up with, I don't know, a bill per user of a couple $100.
Yeah.
But that's yeah.
If they're doing serious
that'd
work, that they could be getting great value from that. So what I can't seem to figure out is how do you account for things like a particular company comes in, they want a single-use tool. Turns out that single-use tool is very useful to a lot of other companies, and so people pay for that too. What kind of revenue is that? Because
that's-
that's not token markup. That's like,
That's the internal currency that we're talking about with attribution, isn't it? It's like
well,
you put that out and others use it, then they pay in tokens. or
that's
pay
just
for
pure.
tokens on
That's
margin.
pure software usage price, right? Because you're not marking up the hosting in that case. But I guess we can't really touch that until we have a price setting agent that determines that this is a fair price for that
Yeah.
software. Otherwise, it's got to be Hosting Plus, right?
Yeah, Hosting Plus is the table stakes. Attribution is centered around value, which would need
Yeah,
information about what value was actually generated, as opposed to
yeah. But
what
then
costs were used.
the other angle that we can have income coming in is if you take, so we got the kitchen sink background tool here. Where did it go? This is like the kitchen sink, but you can take any given nap and you could package it up as a fuck it. You could package it up as a standalone app, which you could charge a different amount for
Mhm.
than just Hosting Plus, right? And so what do we label that kind of income or that kind of venture? And how do we get a handle on what you can make
Well,
from that?
that seems reasonable. You just put it's like some apps are free, some apps are paid, but you've always got to pay your power bill, which is Tokens Plus.
Right. So Tokens Plus is the power bill, but then if people manage to produce little ventures that sell what people could get on the platform for cost plus, and they sell it at a markup, like, is that even viable? Like, if they're using Dreamcatcher software,
Well, yeah, you'd want that, wouldn't you? You'd want, because then anyone who uses the thing that they're selling as an app and getting their cuts, those people are coming on platform and are paying the
but they might
platform
not be
token
on
plus.
platform. Like, I might make a completely standalone website for the trucking CRM, and whilst I would use under the hood, I would pay the bill for the Dreamcatcher infrastructure, I would charge my customers at a different rate. Now, I think the rules would be that the ambient attribution bot would determine how that money got split up.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that that person would have set their own price,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems legit. I just want to know a way to classify or categorize that, and just check with you that once we have the price setting agent, which is to say I guess that's the impact calculation
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
agent,
Yep. Yep.
then that is the thing that sets the price. And so I think that agent's a critical part of the Pantheon, because setting a fair price, like Tokens Plus, is just it leaves a lot of money on a table. It's great for growth, but the price setting agent, I think, is going to be the real revenue unlock, because some people will have reason to get it super cheap, and other people will have reason to get it super
Right.
high, and
Yeah.
this bot will figure that out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the categorization of that? So there's the substrate price, and then there's a unit price.
Yeah, I guess that's the software construction price, like that software consumption, like that's just straight up software usage, software licensing in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, difference between an operating system and, running an app.
Yeah. And then I think probably the biggest money spinner that we want to shoot for is ultimately money from actual usage, like enterprise doing stuff. Like if we bought ourselves a trucking company, for example, that started making money because we'd sort of completely gutted how the
kind of
business runs.
Kind of profit share.
But that's sort of that's the big money, I think, because you could get the same cut that you could get from, say, 1,000 users, you could get it from one company.
Yeah, and also it works for the company, because if it doesn't actually show any improvement, it doesn't pay anything.
Yeah.
Although you probably still want it to pay the substrate price.
Yeah. So really what I was getting at here was that it seemed like there's a way to chart these things out in a multi-layered line graph. But what's interesting is that what types of revenue we can turn on or even approach at any given moment depends on the milestones of the features that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can sort of chart out like, okay, we're trying to build the pricing agent because that will unlock this thing, or we're trying to get decentralization going because that will unlock this feature. And so we
Yeah.
can sort of chart our course based on the revenue that we
Yeah.
want to focus on at that particular time.
Yeah, I agree. And the cost plus is the easiest one because there's no intelligence behind that. It's just
No,
really.
that's right.
And then I'm thinking about some of these things like the accountancy companies. Some of them went straight for so let's do a profit share. That would be great because the all ships rise on a rising tide.
Yeah. But I think what we know is coming is that these agents will be able to consider all information about a situation and figure out what a fair price is.
Yes.
Like that's definitely on its way. So
Yeah. Yeah. But I like the idea of these being the milestones because it
Yeah.
unlocks each. 'Cause
yeah,
otherwise
and
we're kind of if they're
flailing.
asking for something that's off platform, then we're getting into individual contracts and all that kind of
Yeah, that's
heavy
right.
stuff.
But we can be like, okay, right now we're focusing on individual users. Now we're focusing on enterprise users, and at least we'll have projections that we can sort of say, here's where we're trying to get to, and this is how the progress is going so far.
Yeah.
But the first one's going to be just any users at all, right? And then,
Right. Yes.
but that
Exactly.
sounds like if we're not careful, that's just going to take off pretty quick. Like,
Well, without asking anyone to do it, I think we were up at about 25 users last time we.
there was
started.
still someone. I still see someone using the old HAL on occasion. I'm like, who was doing that?
The thing is, that was customer get customer.
Yeah, I know, right? And then now we're gonna have like a dedicated friends list in there, and you can be like, well, you can chat, you can talk, you can do all the stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that I stumbled upon, like I said, it's been a great couple of days actually.
Yeah. Out of the park. Yeah.
I know, right? But man, that sucks so bad. Remember how there was so much fuss at Interbit about describing the requirements or the USPs or the
Yeah.
right? Endlessly, right?
Yeah.
And it was always like, we came up with different answers here and there and different kinds of clever ways of doing it. But actually, like what I realized is that what you can do with these AIs now is you can go up to any of them here and you can ask for it. You can define features in terms of industry standard. Like,
right. Well, that's the thing with the USPs. It was the unique part was the difficult thing, wasn't it?
right, but you don't. I think that you don't even want to talk about that. Like, if you're trying to build a new platform, unique's not really doesn't matter as much as do you meet the minimum requirements, the table stakes, and so. What you can do is go through and describe, for example, if it's document editing, here's all the features that people expect as a minimum, like real-time co-authoring, blah, 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 suggesting edits and all that. And so if we can define our feature set as a derivative of the industry requirements, and then we can also add in some features that we think are unique to us. So we're like, we have to do all these basic table stakes ones, but these features are what make us different, and that's why we're doing this whole thing. But you can also have this set up as a comparison with your competitors. And so instead of you trying to take your features and then turn them into a list of unique points and then compare yourself to others, you start with the industry-wide agnostic comparison and work backwards. And that lets you...
Yeah.
That's a way simpler way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, nobody has Enclave-based computation. So you're like, well, that's unique. But there's all these other features that people want.
Yeah, you don't get
First.
to start line. Yeah.
No, you
It
can't.
used being a complete clone.
That's
you know.
right. You can't turn up with only your USPs, because then you're just like left standing out in a field. Like
Yeah.
you're alone. It's like you're only unique. No one wants that. And then critically, the part that we gotta focus in on is what are the features that a particular platform has, like say Google Drive, that are very, very sticky, that keep the customers there, and how can we give them a way to migrate out? That's probably the key bit, because it's like people love that feature. Okay, have we got that feature? Yes. Okay, what about everyone who's stuck with that feature? How can we give them reason to want to move?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think if we start charting things like that, we really start to get a handle on who we want to be and where we fit into the world. Because we're not just, like, we have to compete with some pretty fucking heavy duty players. We have a couple of advantages, but they ain't many. But we still gotta make the table stakes. And so this is why we can raise money for, because we're like, well, we can do these unique things that we think pay out, but we need to pay for this table stake. So who's going to stake us?
And you don't even particularly need people to commit to moving, because moving can sound, oh, that's expensive. But take what's happened with chat and search. It's like search is still there. You can still go back to search, but very rarely do, because I usually just go and chat, because it's just better. It does everything that search does. And you've got the whole kind of interactive thread AI piece onto it. And Google are furiously trying to add in AI onto their search, and it's just not doing that well.
To be fair, though, not that I Google much anymore, but when I have, I prefer the AI response.
Yes, but I prefer the thread response for a very detailed search.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't mean that they can't go back to Google, but the new thing has to do everything that was done.
Yeah, you can't.
More.
Yeah, you can't be missing something.
Yeah.
So no, that was a long-standing bugbear of the inability to articulate what our platform did. And then I'm like, actually, it's very simple. You look at what every platform does, and then you just work backwards, and that lets us know, especially with Codex, it's very critical to have this top-level guidance. It's like, okay, what are you trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to do real-time collaboration for authors on documents. Okay. And then you're like, well, we don't have that feature, but this is how we're going to go about it. Mm-hmm. And that's a much, much easier job. It's like coloring in when it's all the outlines are done and all the colors are numbered, and you just like, I've got 5 more squares to color, and then the painting is finished, versus like a blank piece of canvas, and you're like, oh dear, I don't even, am I painting a dog?
And then you can go off piece and painting a Godzilla over the top of your coloring block.
Yeah, so I think the goal is still basically build enough platform that we can use it to accelerate ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then that will, first of all, we've delivered something that if we're using it to accelerate ourselves, then others will find that useful too, because everyone has to be accelerated. That's the only way you're going to survive. Right. And so if we accelerate ourselves, first of all, we get that immediate benefit, because all these other tools, they're great, but they just ain't doing it for me. Like
They're
there's
not,
still
they're not quite right, are they?
nah, and we got a version or a view on what quite right is, and
Yeah.
we should roll with that. And if it's good for us, then it's good for others. Then once we've got that, we can start looking at these more sort of table stakey type of things and flesh out this list with things like, you know, what compliance certs do we need? Do we need a hoster? All those kinds of things. So
Yeah. Yeah. And also the priority stack rank can be drawn by the particular use cases that we're looking at.
yeah,
to
yeah,
start with.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's why you can go and raise like some big cash to be like, we've proven a model where we can deliver features, and we know with X probability that these features are going to cost us this much, and so we can, you know, pass the cap around and be like, we need this much money, and then we start to really take off because we're like, that's speed. Then that's speed.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay. If I can move on to one extra
Mm-hmm.
thing, it has come to my attention that
That's what my father used to say when I'd done something wrong.
well, I ain't your daddy, but but that's not to say you haven't done something wrong.
No, I know. I'm about to find out. Right,
No,
so-
it's come to my attention that Binance, the biggest exchange on the planet, is trying to focus in almost entirely on DeFi. And then it also came to my attention that there are some rather big crypto exchanges in Australia, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that have like, you know, 70 compliance people. So those people will be getting anywhere from 100 to 200K a year times 70. You know, you start to look at them.
What on earth do they need so many compliance people for?
Well, because the regulator, first of all, the regulator's not doing their job, because it sounds like one of Binance's models was to sort of go for gold and ask for forgiveness later. Turns out the regulator doesn't do much.
Well, it sits there conjugating.
Not even that. Like, it sounds like the regulator's understaffed. It kind of, there's a lot of sort of egregious shit going on that the regulator's just not doing a hell of a lot. Like, I wonder who regulates the regulator. Like, how do you know the regulator's not performing well?
Well, it's definitely understaffed in the US now. It's been.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it started to dawn on me, like, there's this concept, right? That what I was talking about with the ambient attribution agent, if you start it with minimal prompting and you let it grow kind of organically, that's a better model than trying to design it up front and then be responsible for testing it and all that, which is sort of how the training for DeepSeek went. You know, like they really figured out a way to make it train itself rather than them hand specifying all the rules by which it would train, and that's why it got so good with so little effort, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
So the same thing then should apply to a crypto exchange, but if you don't think of it as an exchange, like the hard part for Binance and others is the regulatory oversight of the trading activity that occurs within their platform. But if you look at what happens, so I don't know how much you know about DeFi, but basically, because the transaction costs of Ethereum are going down and there's sort of cheap side chains that can run on Ethereum and all that, you can get pretty much the same pricing as you can get at an exchange, but you can get it on chain. And so that means that, like, the regulator kind of, first of all, if push came to shove, the regulator kind of can't, or would be incredibly hard pushed to regulate the behavior of a smart contract. But second of all, like, it's not your responsibility. Like, if you helped people get money, fiat money, into crypto and then out of crypto, but you didn't do any of the trading or any of the margin calls or any of these other things like token sales and were you a security and selling derivatives, if you were just dealing with the money, then first of all, that's safe. But second of all, if you built it from the ground up as being AI compliance, where the AI is being taught and tuned how to meet the regulator's requirements and how to help the person around, and then the critical part, if you give your users the exact same tools using the Dreamcatcher, the exact same tools that you use to monitor and control, then no one's sort of taking, like, if you say, okay, we're not going to allow any dirty money to come out of crypto, and then we publish the tool that could assess whether money was dirty or not on chain, then you could know ahead of time without even asking us if your money was dirty or not. And so you can like self-deport or self-regulate because you're like, oh, well, you know,
And
I'm not
if
even
the
going
same
to try.
tools are available at any point to a regulator,
Yeah.
and you've used that tool, and it's like, this looks dirty as shit.
Yeah.
And you know that anyone else can see that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so you, first of all, won't get people trying to corrupt your exchange because they'll know from using your tools that, oh, don't even try. Second of all, you can point at your competitors in the market and be like, there's a lot of dirty money going into that exchange over there, regulator. Right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. And then, like, if you're only focused on money in, money out, you can get banking connections when all of these exchanges kind of can't, because there's like fraud and money laundering going on. And so the banks are just like, we can't even deal with that. But if you're like, the issue is, I'm sorry for droning on. I don't have this sort of tied up in a nice punchy bow, but if one of the issues with running an exchange is that all the money laundering is essential to their bottom line. Like, it makes up a lot of their revenue that they possibly can't survive without. But if you could make an exchange that was built on AI agents from the ground up, its overheads are very tiny. Now, why is that good? Well, number one, you can offer the best prices in the market with the best customer service and the highest speed. And, like, you know, you heard that chick talking on the phone there. If that was your helpline, you know, like, I might ring that just for fun. But if you're also providing tools, AI-based tools for trading, so basically using crypto is a nightmare anyway, but if we made tools in the Dreamcatcher platform where it's like, hey, I want to swap USDC for this new meme coin, and it's like, okay, well, first of all, that sounds like a scam, but be that as it may, here's the best place to get the price, and this is what typically happens. And, you know, like, you can have bots that help you use the chains themselves to get more features than any given exchange can offer you, with more convenience, intelligence, and insight at lower prices, and it's all on chain. You know, like, that's just a better overall experience. And I think maybe Binance is trying to shift to be that, actually, if they're focusing on DeFi. But we got a kind of a rare opportunity where the platform tooling that we make, and I know I was asking about revenue streams before, crypto could be a big one, because we can natively integrate with all that stuff, and we can bring reasonability to the crypto space, where it's like, is this token a scam? And it's like, well, this is Scambot, and you can petition Scambot, but
Mm-hmm.
as it stands right now, based on the knowledge base that Scambot has, that's definitely
You're
a scam.
moving the responsibility onto the user for, hey, we're giving you all these tools, you make your choice.
Yeah,
And by the way, those same tools are available to anyone, including the auditor,
yep, especially the auditor.
which so people will probably self-police.
Yeah. And then the exchange would have like one, maybe two people, basically the minimum required under law. So the overheads would be tiny in comparison to the bigger exchanges. And so you could be genuinely profitable in a very harsh environment, like in an environment where your competitors are making money by flaunting the rules. You're able to stay profitable and stick to the rules.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
And
I see
then
what
that,
you're saying.
yeah, that starts to get pretty exciting because you're like being a gateway for that money. And then you just go around setting up in each country and you're like, we got a real simple model. We only take stable coins and you buy them and they go to this address and you
Yep.
cash them out and we run these laundering tools. And if you fail the tool, that's it. If the regulator asks us or anything else, you'll be fully kept abreast of what's happening internally and why we're looking at you, and we just make public our rules every day.
There's something about that disinfectant of daylight, wasn't there?
Yeah, because the issue with Binance is like I'm sure that those big exchanges must be corrupted, because if I was a money launderer making millions of dollars from laundering, I would just pay off one of the lowly staff members in an exchange to tell me what the tricks are and what the triggers are and are they on to me and all that,
Yeah.
right? But if it's
Yeah.
like incorruptible, I'll just stay away.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's by definition. But that self-policing thing is really interesting as well,
Self-policing, yeah.
because it's a well-known trope. People obey laws not because of the punishment, but based on the probability of getting caught.
Yeah. And then if you started offering bounties for people who could spot bad behavior using the tools that you made available, or, if they wrote a new tool, they can get a royalty from everything you pay for the tooling.
Yeah. It'd be hard to argue that such a platform wouldn't be in the public interest.
Right.
Which is what the auditor is really there is to make sure that nobody gullible gets ripped off.
Yep.
Because of information gradients. But we're removing the information gradient. You've got, you can just talk to the tool, and you've got as much information as everyone else.
That's right. That's the critical thing.
Hmm.
So we'd be an exchange, or not even an exchange. We're just like an on-ramp, an on and off ramp that tries to have the smallest possible information gradient, and everything is AI based.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that, yeah, a lot, actually.
Yeah, and it's got weird effects like self-policing.
Yeah.
Keeps the bad people away. It means that we're not only genuinely compliant, but
Yeah, we're bit phrase. We're compliant in the spirit as well as the.
yeah, that's
know.
right. That's right. And so, no, it just seems like that's a great place to apply, because we kind of we gotta pick somewhere. We got all this cool stuff. Yes, we know the basics is the platform with the chatting and the repos and all that, the friends, the agents, the individual frames, or the apps or the FAPs or whatever we call them now.
Mhm.
Like, sure, but then immediately after comes like, we need to point the gun at something. I don't want to point the gun at let's get more users or let's run an ad campaign or I want to point the gun at let's do something cool that makes money.
Yeah. Um, I agree, and also it marries quite nicely with an internal currency as well. Because if we're talking about an exchange, then you know, build up your attribution and then get it out. How do you know? You know, they're not doing something weird like, you know, two users or actually one user, and they're using it just to wash through
Mm.
to make stuff that nobody really cares about, never uses.
Mm.
But there's a tool to spot that. So hey, you can't do that. Well, well, you could do that. It's just that everyone else is going to be able to see you doing that.
Maybe actually just blurring my eyes on that concept a little bit and making it fuzzy from a distance. That's actually what the Truth Seeker bot or agent is. It's actually a whole lot of people with detective tools that go around and, like, there's petitions that you present some proof and you petition the fact checker, and it chooses based on what it was. You know, like that forensic stuff shouldn't be, we shouldn't expect the bot to be able to do that. We should expect that humans are very good at that, and they'll just keep making better tools, and you know,
That's interesting. That is interesting, isn't it?
right? And then
Yeah,
it's like,
maybe.
well, you could imagine that with because the iteration rate of these forensics tools for financial crime is not great.
Mhm.
And
a lot slower than tools for financial crime.
right. And so we could say, well, you know, we got this network system where people get rewarded for solving these puzzles in a way, you know, spot the financial crime. Like, where in the world is the terrorist financing coming from? You know, like, that starts to make it almost a game where you've got AI tools that can grind over large amounts of data, where you can test a theory and you can earn money for spotting these things.
I quite like that. I quite like that. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Anyway, that was all the things that I had to talk about from the last couple of days. I had a good couple of days.
Shit ton of stuff. Don't think there's anything this side that we didn't talk about before. It's mostly more and more on the groaning hopper.
I think it's about to get its pimple popped, buddy.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, there's going to be a shit ton of stuff coming through as soon as there's somewhere to come through too. Yeah, I'll not go through them again because they're essentially the same things, but demand is significant.
Great.
And in that that table of income, even just on the cost plus, that would be more enough to start with, I think.
Yeah. And then we just see what, you know, what is the market willing to bear for something that's, you know, just...
Well, quite a lot, because the market seems to be comparing it with getting humans to do it. So that's real easy.
Yeah, that's right. And then once we can get the pricing agent up, then we'll know that we're getting paid the optimum fair amount. Right now, we're gonna have to launch with, we know that the meager income we get is being distributed fairly.
Yep.
And then next we need to know, are we charging fairly?
Yeah.
You know, because even cost plus might be unfair to certain classes or groups of people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And 20%, where did 20% come from?
Right. Like, well, I just made that shit up, basically. So
exactly. Is that fair? I don't know.
well,
Is there other direction?
no, it's not. But what's the better number, you know? So
Yeah.
and then I mean, with that's where we can at least start having the knowledge base of what it means to be set a fair price can start to grow, and it starts from simple little, almost comical arguments like that. Like,
Yeah. Cool. Right. I'm going to need to go.
all right, buddy.
and I can hear you yawning.
No, you can't. I wasn't.
Okay, you were, and it's recorded. Or you were breathing heavily.
I was excited. Sue me. You know, like
So, right, what day's today? It's Monday, isn't it? So it's Wednesday coming up.
yep.
Okay, cool.
All right.
well, I'll just keep at it the same as before on this side. I'm just gasping to use this thing.
It's getting close though, right? Like
Yeah.
all right, so I'll get you the basically come in, log in, pull in a repo from GitHub,
Yep.
select from the repo, and then talk to the bot about it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right. Good. I can't wait to see what you talk to it about. But that seems very doable. It'll be feels like this week because I'm like, I just made like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 13 frames. Right? Like it's happening. It's happening real
Brilliant.
fast.
Brilliant. And
Right.
then I'll come back with a long list of things to add.
Yeah, stuck generation will be one of the main ones, and then so I got to get the chatting going, and then we'll get stuck auto detection plus manual creation.
Yep.
And then we'll get agents going, and then
Yep.
ambient attribution.
Yep. Sounds good.
Alrighty. Okay.
I'll see you in a couple of days' time.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you very much. I'll see you then.
I'll see you.